Now, I'm acting COVID marshal at the start, so for people who don't have their masks on yet, would you mind please putting them on? It's just, we've got a rule at Belvoir that once we close the doors, when the performance or the shadow of the performance, as it might be tonight, happens, we ask people to wear a mask. So that'd be fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for doing that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sue Donnelly, the Executive Director of Belvoir, and I want to welcome you to the 2021 season announcement, part 1. And thank you so much to all the people who are here in the theatre tonight. We really appreciate you coming here. And also to those people who are at home and watching this being live streamed. This is our first ever live streaming of a season announcement. And it seems that this is what happens now in COVID. This is an innovation of COVID. Lots and lots of companies are doing live streaming. We're doing it both live in person and live streaming, because that's what Belvoir does. Yes, that's right. Hey. I'd like to start off by acknowledging the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which we stand. And this hill that Belvoir stands on has been a site for storytelling for thousands and thousands of years. And Belvoir is really proud to be able to continue that tradition. We're also really happy that we're making this season announcement this week, during NAIDOC week, and we're on the set of Cursed, which is written by the wonderful Cody Bedford. It's our Indigenous show for the year, and if you haven't yet had the opportunity to come and see it, I'd encourage you to do so, because it's totally irreverent, very funny, and there's quite a few swear words, so language warning. This has been a difficult year for everyone. I'm sure you've all had lots of challenges, as has Belvoir, and all theatre companies have. And we couldn't have got through this year without the support that we've received from all of you. Both emotionally and practically, the support has overwhelmed us. When COVID started, we just didn't know what was going to happen. We thought that, will we ever reopen? Will we survive? If we can reopen, how can we reopen? There were so many unknown questions. And we were inundated with all these heartfelt personal messages from people saying, you know, hang in there, we'll be back, stay there. Just lots and lots of them were kind of trickling through the months. And it really did sustain us in our, particularly, I'll say me, when I was trying to decipher JobKeeper for all the staff, it kind of made it worth it. We also had many people who, and I'm sure you're in the audience, who donated back their tickets, and I want to thank you for that. I think there was about 58% of people have donated back tickets for the shows that we unfortunately had to cancel or postpone. And then we also had many, many people who provided some financial support to our Artists at Work program in order to support artists during the shutdown. So we've been able to support well over 150 artists during that time, so that they've been creating and developing work that you'll eventually hopefully see on these stages, on this particular stage, if not other stages. So I know everyone gets thanked and all of that, but seriously, Belvoir could not have survived this year without all of you. So I think you should all give yourselves a big clap, because it has been amazing. The federal government, through JobKeeper, look, we couldn't have stayed open if we hadn't had JobKeeper, so thank you to the federal government. It's kept our permanent staff supported. And our arts funding partners through the New South Wales Government, through Create New South Wales and the Australia Council, have also provided us with support, continue to believe that we'll get through this mess along with everybody else. I want to do a big shout out and thank you to the Andrew Cameron Family Foundation, the Balnaves Foundation, Ian Potter Foundation, Nelson Mears Foundation, Oranges and Sardines Foundation, and also to all our Chairs Circle members. And I know a few of our board members are here tonight, and if they're not here, they're watching enthusiastically, I'm sure, on the screen. And they've just been a bedrock for us to keep us going through the year, because it has been a difficult one. Now, we're not quite at the end of the year. You know, we still don't know what's happened. We've had 2 shows open now. It's been great, but as you know, if you've seen the shows, we have very limited capacity. So basically, they're financial loss leaders. And we are hopeful that the government will let us increase our capacity in the near future. Therefore, your support through subscribing in 2021, and I think you'll want to subscribe in 2021. It is a great season. And also donations, as said before, where practical and possible. That's all very important to us, and it keeps us going. So that's enough of me. I'll now pass over to Eamon, who's going to tell you about the season. Thank you, everyone.
Sorry, I didn't get organised beforehand. How's that? Is that okay? Hi, welcome. Sue stole half of my speech, so I might just... Yeah, look, we made a decision quite early on during the shutdown that it would be ridiculous for this company to save the furniture and not the artists, and so quite early on we made two key decisions. One was that throughout the shutdown we would do whatever we could to keep artists working, given that what the shutdown showed instantly was that for whatever reason, I think it happens around the world, but it was particularly obvious here, that the policy settings, the history of the way that companies scratch by a living to make their work, is that the people who do the key thing get up here. For whatever reason, unfortunately the first to get ditched when things go wrong. And that seemed so offensive and upsetting. And I think for many people, a deep shock to the system. We decided we'd do whatever we could to keep artists working throughout the shutdown. We called that our Artists at Work program. And an army of good people stepped up to make that program possible. As Sue said, over 180 artists have been able to get some work over the last couple of months due to that program. But the other decision we made is that no matter what happened to this company in the within the limits of whatever control we still had left, like sand in our hands, that we would try absolutely to protect the season itself, that whatever hits the company took, we would try to absorb them before it affected the work that happened on this stage, that we would not reduce the scope of the company's artistic ambitions by an inch. As it turns out, we've had to make some cuts, but they're not to artists. And so the season that we are presenting at the moment, I think, is something of a miracle, because we are presenting a scale of season. It's a short season that we're going to announce tonight, but the scale of the work that we're doing inside this season is the same as it has always been. We have not reduced that scale by a bit. That's only been possible, I think, because of great generosity. But I do want to particularly thank the staff of Belvoir, who I have said on numerous occasions have been heroic over the last 8 months. This company went part-time back in March, April, and somehow or other increased in some cases the workload, but still found a way through. So I do want to say thanks. Uh, 2020 is not over. We're in our second show at the moment. One of the things that we did do quite early on was we decided that we would do everything we could to keep the new work in our season. Some shows you'll see will turn up next year. The Jungle and the Sea, unfortunately, we have to wait until the borders are reopened, the international borders are reopened a little while. But we have managed to move My Brilliant Career into the next slot following Cursed here. So we have, I think, I'm proud of how much this company has been able to save the new work inside the season. So please don't forget that there is a reordered 2020 before I tell you about 2021. Thanks, Thomas. This season that I'm about to talk you through was put together by the Artistic and Programming Department. I'm going to name people in the order in which they sit, so there's no hierarchy here. Tom Wright, Dom Mercer, Jules Ocullo, Louise Goff, Hannah Goodwin, who is the Andrew Cameron Fellow, Shakti Dharan, Carly Pickard, Aaron Beach, and Sue Donnelly and myself have put this season together. That's quite a large artistic and programming team in many ways, but we think it's not big enough. We think that if you want to fully embrace the task of being a theatre company, that you need that much expertise, that much variety of life experience, and that much, I think, dedication. So what we do is only possible because we reach that broadly. So I do want to say thank you to that group of people who, again, were astonishing throughout shutdown. So thanks to the artistic and programming team. Okay. Quick few last thanks. The poster, we're not doing a book this year. We're doing a poster. You'll see what we've created. I want to thank Tim Kleindienst and Paul Clark from Alphabet. I want to thank Daniel Boo, the photographer, Jonathan Heinmarch, who did the styling, Emily Court and Denise Zidius from The Makeup Wardrobe, and Jack Saltmeris, who made our video. I want to thank everybody in the marketing department. I actually do want to... It's hard to pick out anybody, but our head of marketing, Ashlyn, has been running with like the department almost by herself for the last couple of months. So huge thanks, Ashlyn, you've been amazing. Okay. I'm not going to introduce the first show myself. I'm going to let Eve Blake introduce it. You can have the short microphone. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm so excited. How are we feeling? I can't believe I'm on a stage again. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Fangirls is coming back and I'm so gassed about it, right? Okay, sorry, I'm not being rude. I have notes on my phone. So in 2019, when I was in Fangirls, I often joked that like at the start of the show, you could tell where the teenagers were sitting, but by the end of the show, you couldn't. Because it was just this sea of like faces of all ages that just became this like sea of chaotic, joyful energy, and it was such a privilege. I always say that like I made the show about teenage girls, but I made it for everyone, and it was a career highlight to have granddads come up to me and be like, that chick from your show, that's me. It was amazing. What else do I want to say? Like, I guess if you saw Fangirls, you know that it's sort of a Trojan horse of a show, right? Like on the outside, it seems to be this comedy musical that's a total party of a show and has really good singing and really good costumes. But at its dark center, it's actually about the power of a first crush and the power of teenage girls and the power of loving things without apology. So yeah, I'm just really excited to share it with you again. But what I'm more excited about is that next year I've got a lot of writing to do, so I won't be stepping back into the lead role. And instead, I'm really excited for you to meet the actress who we've cast in the role. Her name is Karis Oka, and she makes me feel like these songs were written for her to sing them. So if you've seen the show, you haven't seen it yet. She's amazing, and we also are welcoming to play the role of Brianna, which was originated by Kim Hodgson, an incredible actress called Shubhri Kandya, and she is extraordinary. I can't wait for you to meet her. Returning, we've got Chika Ikogwe, we've got James Majus, we've got Aisha Madden, and we've got Aiden, and there's more cast to be announced soon. I'm so excited to share this with you. Please try and get a ticket this time before it sells out again. Thanks.
We couldn't fit Fangirls in here at Belvoir Street. I mean that it was crowded last time, so we're taking it to a much bigger space. It wants a bigger space. It's going to the Seymour Centre. We've also added cast members to the show. It's bigger than it was. I do want to just make a little note that the show was originally developed and produced with ATYP and Queensland Theatre. I'm going to asterisk that thought and hopefully come back to it as we keep going through the season. The next show... So one of the things that a playwright needs to be able to do is, know what story needs to be told. That's the kind of big picture question. But the other part of it is knowing how to pick the details that are going to tell that story. And that's a tricky, that combination of the macro and the micro is a very tricky thing. And over the decade and a half that I've been at this company, we've had a lot of unsolicited scripts come through from journalists, lawyers. Lawyers especially seem to want to be playwrights. And we've done none of them until this one, which arrived a couple of years ago, and it was striking at a first read for how well it knew what a story was. But then as we continued to work with the writer, it became apparent that this writer had a particularly unusually acute understanding of what a story was, a lived experience of what story to tell, and was, in fact, a natural playwright. So I want to introduce Sally Sarah. Sally has written a play called Stop Girl, and it's terrific. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
This play has been 5 years in the making. It was an idea. I went for a walk one morning, and when I came back, the whole structure of the play was in my head from somewhere. It tells the story of a journalist, a very tall, attractive, blonde journalist, returning home from Afghanistan. It was a story that I couldn't really write firsthand. It was something that theatre seemed the answer as the way to tell that story. I grew up in a small town called Port Broughton in South Australia, and as a kid there it was a 350 kilometre round trip to go to the theatre in Adelaide. It was a big deal, and I remember sitting there as a kid when the lights would go down and the show was about to start and thinking, somehow, at some stage, I want to write what comes next at some stage. 27 years of journalism kind of got in the way, but taught me a bit. And so this play is the result of the past 5 years. Playwriting Australia was instrumental in, it was selected for development at the end of 2017. And they teamed me up with the wonderful Kate Mulvaney as a mentor and dramaturg for the play, which was hugely helpful. And Belvoir has been interested and so keen to move forward and develop the play as well. So, yeah, for a kid from country South Australia, the thought of having a play on the stage in Belvoir is kind of a dream come true. Yeah.
Thank you, Sally. The play's going to be directed by Anne-Louise Sarks. We have cast a short, attractive brunette, actually, to play a tall, attractive blonde. Sheridan Harbridge will be playing the central role. Woo! Again, thanks, Thomas. Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. It's already won an award, the Blake Beckett Award. Was submitted specially, so it's already an award-winning play. It's been supported by the group, which is a group of philanthropists who have gathered together to make sure that women in the arts get a good deal. So thanks to the group. The next show we have done before, but we're bringing back A Room of One's Own for a very simple reason, which is that back when everything shut down, it was the middle of March, that show had done its first week of rehearsals, and we had no idea when we were going to be back or in what form, but we knew that there was a life inside that piece of writing, that Anita Hegg is one of the most, one of the finest acting instruments. To call her an instrument, that's awful, but Anita is incredible, and that the meeting of those two things was something that we'd have to protect. So that show, Anita and Carissa worked to keep that show alive, and Anita worked to keep that text in her brain and her body for 6 months until it could reopen the theatre. But we sold out before we even opened. Many, many people who saw that show, some of them will refer to seeing it as young women, seeing Pam Rabe do it here on this stage as young women. And they say that that was a revelation, that experience, hearing that particular text, and that they were reminded of that, watching it again 30 years later, what a revelatory text it is. And that chain of revelation, passing from one actor to another, from one generation to another, through a single text across 90-something years now, is, I think, a very beautiful, deep, special thing. And it was clear that that show had not been seen by everybody who was going to get that revelation from it. So we're bringing back A Room of One's Own. I'd like to ask Carissa Licciardello, who was its director, to come and talk to you about it.
I knew I would need to adjust this microphone. So disappointing. So, as you say, Eamon, A Room of One's Own is an incredible piece of writing by Virginia Woolf. It's some people describe it as an essay or a lecture, but it's actually something else entirely. It's an act of imagination. Virginia Woolf has this incredible insight. She's able to see and diagnose these kind of political issues, and she is able to make these striking statements about the state of the world in which she lived, and kind of tap into what it actually still is in many ways like for women living now. But she also imagines her way back into the past through this series of women that she conjures. And in our production, Ella Prince brings a lot of those women to life in quite a striking way. And Virginia then also can turn her eye to the future and imagine what it's going to be like for women 100 years down the track in ways that are quite moving and quite beautiful. So we're really excited to bring that back and bring that to life. And as you say, Eamon, Anita Hegg is an incredible actor, and what she brings to life is Virginia's voice. And there's nothing kind of dry about it. She's not some removed academic who wants to just tell you what she thinks. She's funny, she's witty, she can be really savage and biting, and she also has these incredible passages of poetry. So it's an extraordinary piece of writing, and we're really excited to bring it back with our incredible team. Thanks.
Again, I just want to place an asterisk on this thought. Carissa Licciardello was the Andrew Cameron Fellow for 2 years here, and that was A Room of One's Own was her main stage debut. Again, I just want to clock that for a reason. The next show that we're going to do is a play that I'm going to direct myself. That, before I became an artistic director, I thought that if I ever got to become, and I hope that's not a light about to fall, that if I ever got to become an artistic director, that all I would do would be plays by Chekhov, and yet 5 seasons of being an artistic director passed and I didn't do any of them. But as we were putting this year's season together, it became very clear that it was necessary to offer something that would allow the audience simply to fall back in love with humanity again, I think, especially after the last couple of years. And that Chekhov's plays offer this, I think that, frankly, that they're very rarely done properly or well. I think what they really offer is this beautiful, bizarre, mixed parade of life and a kind of strange gathering of all sorts of human odds and ends, and that within that simple gathering of humans there's this very beautiful space just to kind of be relieved of your own hatreds or failings or shortcomings, and simply to be able to be in love with humanity. I think it's really important. But The Cherry Orchard, which is the play that I'd like to do, has something else to it, which is that it's a play about change. And the experience of change for everybody in the last few months especially, but in the last couple of years, has been pretty unpleasant, pretty grueling. It's been played out in real time. As it's happened, it's been commented on. You can never quite get enough of a story to get ahead of it. At this company, we spent a lot of time working on new work in an attempt to try and gather the chaos into some sort of form. But it became really clear to me that actually it would be nice to step back from the endless iteration of commentary, thought, and being sort of swamped by contemporary life, and that this play was a way to open up a gap in which we could just sit with change. I also wanted to offer something to actors that would allow them to work on characters with deep souls, and that it would allow a gathering of a beautiful, rich array of actors on this stage. The cast that I put together so far, there's only 4 people so far. Pamela Rabe is one of them. Charles Wu is one of them. Keith Robinson is one of them. And I would like to introduce someone who many of you would have seen last year in Counting Cracking. I'd like to introduce Nadi Kamalawira.
Thank you, Eamon. When I got this offer from Belvoir, from Eamon, to do a role in Cherry Orchard, I was delighted. Above everything, I felt joyful because I'm going to be on the stage again after a long time. Cherry Orchard is what I know that it's a masterpiece by Anton Chekhov. Anton Chekhov is personally one of my favorite writers. I love his short stories. I know, as Eamon said, Cherry Orchard, it deals with broad themes like social change, transition, traditions. But what interests me most about this script is this characterization, as you said. As an actor, I think it's a real challenge for me, and I take it happily, because I think Chekhov is very clever at excavating the raw human truth. In this Cherry Orchard, in his characterizations, I think he reveals, very interestingly, he reveals the human being's immense capacity to be contradictory, moment to moment. I find it very interesting and beautiful. So I'm looking forward, I'm very excited. I am looking forward to see what Eamon Flack is going to do with this script. Because it has a very, rich production history. Yeah, so I'm excited. Thank you very much.
Nadia and I met in a little room in Surya Records in Colombo in 2017, 18, when we were casting for Canning Cracking, and you had lived in Australia.
Yeah, I was living in Australia, but I got really frustrated and I decided to go back. Just 3 days before I went to Sri Lanka, I got this email from Belvoir asking whether I'd like to audition for it.
And now Nadia's moved back to Australia again. Yeah. Cherry Orchard is opening on my birthday, and is supported by the Chairs Circle. Thanks, Michelle. Oh, well, that's a perfect segue. One of the shows that we were unable to do this year was a show that we were very excited to be able to program last year, but COVID that up for everybody. But we struck a deal with our co-producing partners and with the writer and star of the show, and I'm very pleased to be able to say that Michelle Law's, I was about to say single Asian female, but that Michelle Law's Miss Peony is coming back next year.
Thanks, Eamon. I'm very, very excited. I just wanted to talk about the idea for the show to begin with, which was if someone like me, an Australian-born Chinese woman, was to enter a beauty pageant, what would that look like? And what would I enter? Would it be Miss Australia? Would it be Miss Universe? I had no idea that Chinese-Australian pageants existed, but they do. I conducted a lot of research. I tried to enter myself, but I was too old. So I was rejected. So I enlisted the help of a mole who was able to do the research for me. So if you've ever been curious about what a Chinese beauty pageant is like, I would implore you to come to Miss Peony to find out. But it's more than that. It's also a story about family and a young woman who makes a promise to her grandmother, who was a beauty queen in her own time, to win this beauty pageant. And her grandmother comes back from the afterlife as a ghost to ensure that she fulfills this promise. So it's a magical realist story about cultural identity and belonging. Something I did notice from my first play, Single Asian Female, which I think some of you in the audience may have seen when it was at Belvoir, was that, Chinese Australian audiences really came in droves, and a lot of those people had never even been to a theatre show before. And something that really struck me was that, you had these second generation migrants who were connecting to this story, but many of the people who came, who were their parents and grandparents, didn't actually understand what was going on in the play because they couldn't speak English. So in Miss Peony, this play is trilingual. So it's spoken in English and Cantonese and Mandarin, and there will be surtitles, so everyone is welcome and everyone will understand this story. So if you're watching at home, you can bring your parents and you can bring your grandparents. So if you enjoyed Single Asian Female, you're really going to love this show. It's this amazing cast of actors who are going to blow your socks off. It's another feminist feel-good comedy with a heart of gold, which is, I don't know, how I hope my Tinder bio to sound like. So I'm really excited to see you all there. Thanks, Eamon.
Thanks. Miss Peony was commissioned and developed with PWA. The reason that I'm clocking all these things is not just to go through some official process of thanking people, although, again, the Nelson Mears Foundation is supporting this piece of work. But the reason I'm clocking all these things is because nothing that happens on this stage spontaneously, appears within the realms of this company. Everything that happens here is the product of a big, fragile network of arts organisations, service organisations, supporters, lovers of the arts, and none of it, the work that happens here, can happen without that whole thing. This is an important point to make because I kind of think, actually, if I'm honest, for a couple of decades, but certainly for the last 10 years, that network has been, I was going to say it's been rotting from within, but it hasn't been. It's just been attacked repeatedly again and again and again. And I don't mean necessarily willfully, though sometimes it does feel willful. I think that it's just been attacked by a kind of ongoing policy of perhaps deliberate neglect. What happens on this stage cannot continue if that network of organisations, small to medium, major, independent, arts lovers, philanthropists, government bodies, the whole shebang, doesn't somehow find a little bit more room to breathe than it has at the moment. This company cannot survive 10 years unless that whole thing is allowed to find some life that it doesn't have right now. This fundamentally, I think, is a question of public policy. I don't think this is the Australia Council's fault. I don't think this is the fault of short-sightedness on the part of individual companies. I think this is a national question that has to be addressed nationally. It's past time that it was addressed by either side of politics, quite frankly. I'm not being partisan here. The reason I'm raising it tonight is because this long-standing crisis was fast-forwarded by the catastrophe of COVID. We're hearing a lot about the effects of COVID on the arts, but let's be really clear about this. COVID just sped things up. The existential issues that the arts are facing are not the product of COVID. They are the product of, I think, 2 decades of wrong-headedness in our policy settings. I don't know how that changes. I think anyone who has to fight for policy change at the moment, feels like you could make things worse rather than better. But it has to be talked about. And I think it's clear, Sally mentioned PWA, every single show so far has only been able to happen because of the support of this whole thing. I want to raise that again. I have in the past and I will in the future. So that's the end of my asterisks. The last show that we're going to announce, it's called At What Cost? Its writer is our current Balnaves Fellow, Nathan Maynard. Nathan can't be here tonight, but you'll meet him in a second through the magic of technology. It's going to be directed by Isaac Drandage. Isaac is a terrific director. He's directed here before. Quite completely by chance, and oddly, Isaac's kids go to school with my niece and nephew in Cairns. They're a couple of weeks ago, I spoke to Isaac and he said, I'm having a party at your mum's house on Saturday night. Mum was away. It was great. This show, it's called At What Cost? I'm not going to say too much because I really want Nathan to describe it, but I do just want to clock that over the course of the history of this play's development, it has been developed by people at Ilby Jury Theatre in Melbourne, through Yallamundi, which is a playwriting festival run here by Moogalin, at PWA. It's had some work at Bundanon, and it's currently the Balnaves show for 2021 within our season. So again, it's only the product of this great big coalition of people, but I'd really like you to meet Nathan Maynard.
Hello everyone, my name's Nathan Maynard. I'm talking to you from Larapuna country, Lutruwita, Tasmania, my country. Sorry I can't be there with you tonight, but I hope you have a really good night. I thought I'd talk to you from here because this is where all the magic happens. No, it's not. The magic happens in the bedroom. No, it doesn't. No magic happens there either. I'm talking shit. What can I tell you about at what cost without giving the play away? I can tell you that it's the play that I needed to write. It's like my mind couldn't come up with any fresh ideas until I got At What Cost out of my head. The identity issue, the Aboriginal identity issue in Tasmania, in my eyes, is ripping our community apart. And hopefully this play might get some people talking, because at the moment it feels like a lot of people have got their heads in the sand and nobody wants to talk about it, and people are too scared to talk about it. What else am I excited about? What cost? I'm excited to work with Isaac Drandick. I've worked with him a few times and he's just one talented brother. When his eyes roll, in the back of the head like they do, give him 30 or 40 seconds and just a bit of magic's just going to fall out there somewhere. And also I like working with Isaac because he's staunch. He's got integrity, and as a playwright, that he'll stick true to the message of your play and the meaning that you want to get out there. Again, thank you very much. Thank you, Belvoir, for supporting this play and for supporting me. And I know that you are one unbelievably professional unit, and I can't wait to see what you're going to do with my words. Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone for supporting this play and for supporting Belvoir. See you later on in the Big Smoke in, I think, August. Thank you. Bye. Woolika.
That's our 2021 Part 1 season. It gets us through to September. After that, we'll wait and see. We've got some things cooking, but we're just waiting to see how things are going to play out over the next little while before we make any more announcements. I want to leave you now with a very short video. I do want to say that the music in this video was composed and directed by Hamed Saregi, who was part of our Artists at Work program with his group, Ishan Ensemble. Thank you.